Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, Massachusetts, where all are welcome.
Good morning and welcome. I'm the Reverend Julianne Silberman-Bunn, and I am a guest here this morning and delighted to be with you all. The chalice lighting words this morning come from Harry Meserve, and they're in our hymnal. From arrogance, pompousness, and from thinking ourselves more important than we are, may some saving sense of humor liberate us. For allowing ourselves to ridicule the faith of others, may we be forgiven. For making war and calling it peace, special privilege, calling it justice. Indifference and calling it tolerance, pollution and calling it progress. May we be cured. For telling ourselves and others that evil is inevitable while good is impossible, may we stand corrected. God of our mixed up, tragic, aspiring, doubting, and insurgent lives, help us to be as good as in our hearts we have always wanted to be. And let us come together in worship this morning, having lit our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, cup of our community and flame of our hopes. And now we will sing our first hymn of the morning. It is number 9, No Longer Forward or Behind.
It's not one we know very well, so listen up.
And let us share our affirmation together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. May you be seated. And this is the time for our announcements. And we've got the announcement man with the microphone.
Good morning, everyone. So, I'm still getting used to being back. It took 10 weeks off in the summer. Getting up early on Sunday morning, launching around with coffee and paper. But I have done a lot of work over the summer with my community, and I want to say I am blessed to thank them last week. Thank you so much to Eric and Richard and Nancy for their support and their encouragement in putting this program here together. It's almost finished. We have 4 open slots. So if you want to know what we have planned to cover, the reminder is always here to give you some feedback. So I would like to say thank you to Julianne and her driver for coming down from Western Massachusetts to be with us this morning. But I heard that it was a pretty ride. Thank you again for being here. And next week, Claire Dallison will be here with us. So I know you all love her, so please do come here.
There's some stuff in the back here. Between Diane and Steve. There's a lot of stuff. So take it, if you can fit it in your vehicle today, take it, we'll help you load it. If you can't fit it in your vehicle today, you'll arrange somehow to get it. Also, in the hall, the far end, there are 2 other items that are giving away. There's a great big square coffee table. Big square coffee table, it's among those couches out there. And also in the very far corner, there's a beautiful piece of woodwork. It's all cubby holes. And I think it dates from when the YMCA was renting our building and they were running a preschool here. And the kids would put their work each day in a little cubby hole. We have no use for this beautiful piece of cabinetry.
I have one announcement. Tomorrow is Monday.
So just don't forget everyone to try to vote this coming Tuesday. It's a preliminary, the only candidates will be for mayor. But it's still important. So it's this Tuesday. And Tricia and I are both old. And also Tracy. I'm all with it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I understand.
Yes.
I didn't know they let foreigners in.
The invocation this morning is the words of Margaret Savage, and it was an absolutely perfect find for today's service. The day the world turned upside down. The day when the world turned upside down, when a frown became a smile, when the mice chased the cats, and the cats chased the dogs, and the dogs laughed out loud at the pink and yellow frogs. When you went to bed in the daytime and got up at night, when the birds caught the school bus and the cows took flight, when the moon came out in the middle of the day and all the ocean's fish rolled around in the hay, when the children ruled the world and ice cream was for free and the elephant shrank to the size of a flea, when the grass rained lollipops up to the sky, when you wanted to laugh but could only cry, when magic beans were real and giants were small, you would eat spiders' legs so you could creep up the wall. This all happened when the world turned upside down after I went to bed with a smile, not a frown. Let us sing together hymn number 17, every night and every morn. When I was trying to decide on what I wanted to preach about today, I was really struggling. And then I realized that things in our world today seem pretty upside down. In fact, it really seems like life in general is pretty upside down for a lot of people and in a lot of ways. Things seem upside down in a lot of small ways, but also in some pretty major ways in our country and in the world at large. Recently, the state of Florida eliminated vaccine mandates for school-age children, and the highest medical professional in the state stood in front of a press conference and explained that individuals should not have anyone else tell them what they need to put in their own bodies. The individual should get to make that decision. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the current Secretary of Health and Human Services, is openly skeptical of vaccines and has publicly spoken out against vaccines on a regular basis over many years. And yet he was confirmed by our national leaders into the position which is supposed to oversee the healthcare of the nation. But instead of improving matters, he fired the 17 highly educated, knowledgeable people who were overseeing the Vaccine Advisory Committee. I am the daughter of a polio survivor who spent several years in an iron lung as a very young child and only saw her brother through the window for a number of years. I am the daughter of a woman who had one leg significantly shorter than the other and whose feet were a 5.5 double A on one foot, and the other foot was a 7.5 B. She literally had to buy 2 pairs of shoes to get one pair that actually fit her feet. She made certain her children were vaccinated as soon as possible. I married a man who was one of 5 children. When his mother was pregnant with his next sibling, she had rubella, or German measles. That child was born with significant health issues as a result of the rubella. That child was born with severe vision issues and what at the time was considered mental retardation. My mother-in-law fought for years to get her child any kind of public education. That child also had cardiac issues. He had something called Epstein syndrome. You probably know it as the disorder that young athletes have that causes them to suddenly drop dead at a very young age. My brother-in-law was not much for physical exertion, so he significantly exceeded the lifespan for a person with Epstein syndrome. But he died at 47, following a brief series of health issues that included a heart attack and going septic. Polio and rubella are today preventable illnesses. Measles, smallpox are preventable illnesses too. Yet all of these diseases are seeing resurgences. One of the keys to keeping individuals safe and disease-free is the not so lovely sounding reality of herd immunity. If those who can be immunized aren't, those who can't be are more vulnerable to infection. All of this sounds like science and politics, but the reality is that it is about a social and moral contract we as human beings have with one another. It is about our values and our ethics, how we want to be in relationship with each other. My parents raised me to understand that our children, our collective children, were the bellwether of society. When all of our children were not doing well, our society was not doing well. When children are literally dying from preventable illnesses, we as a society are failing them. When children who should have had basic medical and human needs met are not surviving and not thriving, we are failing as a society. A few years ago, on October 7th, when Hamas attacked a concert and communities formed with peace at their core, kibbutzim, my world began to turn upside down. I have always self-identified as a cultural Jew. I'm not a religious Jew. My father was raised as an Orthodox Jew and was the first in the family born in America. He lived in Brooklyn, New York, in an almost exclusively Jewish neighborhood with the rest of our Orthodox Jewish family that had arrived from Poland in 1920, the last year it was legal for Jews to immigrate to the United States. I have always thought of myself as a person who cared. I believe that human life is sacred. I'm a panentheist, which is a variant of theology that most people never hear about. People hear about pantheists, and they are people who believe that there is that of the divine in all living things. A panentheist believes that there is that of the divine in all things. I often say it's a scientific metaphor, really, because there's a limited amount of matter and energy in the universe. So therefore, all things are intertwined. I believe that the lives of Palestinian children and Israeli children and the children of Darfur are all sacred, just as our own children are sacred. Expressing this belief never felt controversial to me until October 7th. In the last few years, I, who self-identify as a cultural Jew, have repeatedly been told that I am anti-Semitic. The first time someone told me I was anti-Semitic, it felt as if I was watching the world literally turn upside down. Then I heard an interview with Max Brooks, son of Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft, who I've always felt a secret connection to because Anne Bancroft is buried diagonally across the road from my grandparents. Odd occurrence in an old-fashioned cemetery in Westchester County. But Brooks was asked if he identified himself as a Jew, since his parents were from two very different cultures, and his mother was not a Jew. And in the law of return and in Judaism, it is the mother's identity as a Jew that dictates whether you are considered a Jew. Brooks responded to the interviewer with a short sentence. He said, "I am Jewish enough for Auschwitz." It was the first time I really understood some of my own fears and why I felt the world had been turning upside down. I too am Jewish enough for Auschwitz. And in my heart of heart, knowing that I cannot understand how anyone knows that can be in any way, and seek and approve violence against others is beyond my comprehension. I have always felt a kindred spirit to Holocaust survivors. My grandparents and my uncles came from Poland. They had survived World War I. And as a child, I went to a Jewish preschool where we frequently had Holocaust survivors speak to us. It's one of the reasons I find it so confusing today that parents try to shelter their children from the realities of death and dying and violence. I was raised to believe that we had to know the past or we were going to repeat it. I'm watching it be repeated in more ways than I can imagine. And yet today, if I even mention in many of our congregations some of the history of our world in which people were persecuted, I'm asked not to come back. Children are smart. Children understand and need to know what's actually happening in the world. They don't need to be completely sheltered. They need to learn things in ways that are appropriate, that are in parcels small enough for them to take in. Attention spans vary dramatically. If you want to give them a lecture for 2 hours, they're not going to listen. But if you talk briefly, it helps them to understand the world around them. One of the things I realized a few years ago was that every child in previous generations knew about life and death and injury because they all had horses. They all had animals. They weren't sheltered from those realities. I think we do a disservice to ourselves and our future generations by sheltering them from realities. My own children lost their mother when they were very young. They call her their first mom. She was their biological mother. My older son was 6.5 when she died suddenly of a pulmonary embolism. Our younger son was 23 months old. They talk about death. They have always talked about death and dying. They don't understand, even now, as young men in their 30s, why their peers are so afraid to talk about real things in their lives. And I believe that it's because we trusted them to let us know what they wanted to know and when they had had enough. Our world turns upside down in so very many ways. This spring, in March, I was preparing to go to work on a Friday morning when the phone rang and the CEO and CFO of the company I worked for were on the line. And they wanted me to know that I was a great employee and they had loved having me work with their patients, but that they had made financial errors and had significantly overstaffed the company. And that day, 20 of us ceased to be employed. Less than a month later, thanks to cuts in our federal funds for education, my husband got an email on a Sunday that said how happy the school district was going to be to have him on staff for the coming year. The following Friday, he and 39 others received notification that because of federal cuts to education, they were no longer employed. Our world turns upside down in so many ways that we, under the best of circumstances, can never imagine. This spring, a bear has decided our house is its favorite restaurant. We serve fruit and vegetables and cat treats and cat food, and she has taught her cubs that our house is fair game. My world has turned upside down. We moved to the woods to enjoy the peace, the fresh air, and the serenity. We have no screens left because the bear has come in or out every window in our house and has taken down all of the porch screens on our lovely, formerly screened-in porch. The bear broke through our kitchen window, so our kitchen windows have had to be boarded up. I will not live in a cave. I refuse to live in a prison. My neighbors tell me that I should put nails sticking out around all my windows and doors. That doesn't feel like a safe home to me. I refuse to live in a prison. The door we have never locked is now locked or barricaded with a piece of rebar much of the time. I love nature and my little corner of heaven, even with a mama bear and her cubs. This is home, and it feels upside down. I am not alone. I know I am not alone. The world is upside down. This is the year 2025, and people are dying from diseases that were supposed to have been eradicated. We have leaders who put their campaigns above the lives of children. We time and time again ask for prayers and thoughts when children are gunned down in their schools, the places that should be most liberating and freeing to their spirits and their minds. But they are doing active shooter drills, as previous generations did atomic bomb drills. We fund weapons and fail to fund food. We build refugee prisons instead of homes for our veterans. We do all of this in the name of justice. As Harry Meserve said in the reading, we're doing the opposite of what we needed to do. And we think we're doing the right thing. But in the name of justice, we are creating some of the greatest injustices our world has ever known. I think often of how beautiful some of our cities in the world, how ancient and historic and magnificent and learned they were. And now they are rubble. I don't think a lot of Americans really, truly understand what it means to seek safety when your world has turned upside down. I don't know how we will right the world, but I do know that we are the only ones who can. So let us do the work of love. Let us do the work of justice. Let us turn our world right side up. Amen. Shalom and salam. And at this time, we receive your gifts that sustain this congregation in its work and its mission, that others may know there are those here trying to right the world. Okay, thank you. This is the time in the service for the sharing of joys and concerns. We have received your gifts, which sustain this congregation, and we are deeply grateful. And now you have the opportunity to share the gifts of your spirit, those things which are joyful and full of sorrow. And we ask that you speak into the microphone.
I guess I can't help but comment a little bit. I've come to the conclusion, I think, in my life that the most important thing that we can do is to be able to discuss topics, especially controversial topics, openly without fear of retribution. You know, you brought up a whole bunch of very controversial topics, of which mostly from what I gather from your discussion, I disagree with. And one of the things that I find, like in this organization, for example, is that we never hear the other side, ever. Never, you know. And so this is, it's like a browbeating session sometimes to come and listen to this constant, what I would consider somewhat a diatribe. But I don't want to go that far because that's actually kind of, you know, derogatory. It's not diatribe, it's an opinion that's expressed wholeheartedly within someone's personal experience and whatnot. You know, as a scientist, like one of the things that I lament in my life is I got to see how science has sold its soul to big companies, pharmaceuticals, bankers, insurance companies, so that the people that I used to admire, if not even worship in some ways. I'm looking in their background to find out, what their sources of income are. What are they, how many companies are their partners in? How many patents do they hold that they're profiting from their recommendations? I'm even searching the backgrounds of my physicians to see how much money they're receiving, kickbacks, from pharmaceutical companies because of the medications that they're prescribing. I don't know when that happened, but I suspect that it's been happening for a very long time, way before me, right? And I was just never, ever aware of it. So I get kind of disappointed because I agree probably like 90% of what's espoused, in this particular organization, for example. But we really don't discuss the other 10%. And it's disappointing in a lot of ways, I do thank God that we're not shooting each other anyway, but who knows? The way things are going. That's enough for me. Thank you.
I just feel with the event, well, a lot of events happened this week, but the event of the child murder. And I just want to share a little bit of what I'm struggling with, because obviously political violence, awful, for whatever reason, awful, and this, murder doesn't have any place in civil discussion. And, but I really have been kind of concerned with how much, I think that it's like whitewashing that's going on in terms of who this person was, in terms of some of the pretty hateful things that he espoused. And, I don't think that should be I think the main thing we should be thinking of is, the experience for his wife, his kids, his followers, heartbreaking horror. But I don't think it's right to whitewash what he was saying. He wasn't a free speech guy, really, so much as he wanted to put people into some of his things like anti-Islam, anti-Semitic, anti-Black, anti-woman. And I don't think that should be rushed under the carpet. I don't think we should be saying that.
Ta-da, it's me again. I have a huge joy, of course. I got a new mobility scooter that gets me all around the entire city of Fall River. And I've learned so much about Fall River and its history just so that I can get out and about. And the other day I went to the 911 memorial down here, and it was very heartbreaking. There had to have been a good 200-300 people at least, I would say. But some of the stories that they told and what they said about how it felt at 24 years later. We still mourn all the stuff that had gone on 9/11. Like you said, turned our world upside down, which turned everyone's lives upside down. I was very emotional and everything about what they were saying. But the unbelievable thing that I saw and I got to feel was that USS Massachusetts let off the 21-gun salute. I was there, and boy, those things went off. Boom! And I had to move back, and I felt it through all my body. And it was just like to think that huge ship, the USS Massachusetts here in Fall River, went out and was able to shoot those unbelievable, what did we say, 20-something miles in distance? But it was just amazing to learn something about that. I've had so much fun since I've had that scooter because I'm learning so much about all the history around Fall River and things that are going on. And the funny thing is, Cougar, what's his name, Coogan, the mayor? I bumped into him. He looked at me, he goes, aren't you Beans, that guy that we talked to? Yeah, you remember me? And he goes, you got a scooter. And I said, you know what, thank you. And he said, for what? I said, for paving that bicycle room, all the way down and around, all that area. They had all that. I was having the time of my life because it was smooth. And everybody used to say, bumpy, 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 breaking boom. That place is looking beautiful. And the more and more it does, it makes me feel good to know that I'm here in Fall River, but I'm learning about the education and all the stuff that goes around, and politics and other things. And every day I feel joy. And I think that's what, when I come here, I feel joy. And that's the main thing of my week is joy. I love it. I love being here. I love being out there.
Each of those friends on Massachusetts could fire a shell that weighed as much as my car. 22 miles. 22 miles.
Let us join together in a time of spiritual reflection and prayerfulness. Holy tapestry of human life, of all the ups and downs and the upside downs that we experience, the ones that bring joy and the ones that bring sorrow. In this community, they are tied together in the tapestry, providing us strength to carry on because we are lifted by the others in the tapestry. We are held by them when we are struggling and fearful and grieving. We are lifted by the joy of others. We are lifted by their support, their compassion, and their embraces. We are held in community through all the strange times, regardless of how we interpret them. We are all here, varying threads in the tapestry, wrapping one another in love and compassion. We ask that all may be well, all manner of things may be well. Amen. And let us sing our final hymn, number 112, Do You Hear? May you go in peace and unrest to love and to serve as best you are able in the days ahead. Amen.